Here on the screen we have our aspect raster scores and our nesting land use scores in raster format. Now I went ahead and symbolized them just to show you a couple of things. The aspect, we're really talking about temperature and warm and cool. So I did a symbology of where blue's kind of cool and red's kind of warm with a gradient in between, which is good as long as you're very specific in your legend, your labeling, and your text when you're talking about it, because traditionally in suitability analyses, red is kind of like the no-go or unsuitable or least suitable areas. But as long as you're very clear that this temperature or this color gradient represents the temperature and therefore warmer soils are better, then that's fine when you're talking about temperature or aspect. And the reason we're looking at aspect is because of the temperature of those soils. But for things like nesting, land use scores, where we're not really talking about temperature, we're talking about ground issues, then this kind of divergent color gradient wouldn't work and you need a single color gradient. The same way with our composite scores, when we're putting multiple things together, you need a single color gradient for positive values and then a single color gradient for negative or no-go values. So now it is time to put these two to get rasters together. There's a tool that is similar to the union that we had done in vector files, but we need to make sure our Spatial Analyst toolbox extension is turned on. We go open up our toolbox, go to Spatial Analyst Tools, go to Raster Calculator under Map Algebra. And we have a familiar looking dialog box here where we have some layers, and we have an expression dialog box down here. The difference with rasters are there aren't attribute tables, so we don't need to manage or put in fields. We're just putting in a layer. So double click on aspect scores, go to the plus, go to nesting land use scores, double click on it, and so our thing should read aspect scores plus nesting land use scores. And we're going to say where we want to put it, which is in our processed raster folder, and this is our nesting final scores. And we're going to save. So we'll just say nesting SC for score because the other name was too long. That'll be okay. Then we're going to click OK. This will take just a little bit to run, maybe for 5-10 minutes or so, somewhere in there. But what we get at the end then should look similar to the vector file we had, except it's a raster. So we have 0 through 8 because we have a max score of 4 to max score of 4. And we can quickly symbolize this to kind of show you positive nesting characteristics of 8 and kind of our okay suitability areas of 1. And so that is how we composite these into a raster. Now I'm going to show you, but not necessarily require you to then convert. So if you go to conversion, you can say to shapefile or from raster. Raster to polygon is probably your best option if you needed to convert this back to a polygon. Now it would take a while because there's a lot of complexity there, but I'll leave that up to you. You could just use this raster file as well. And so that concludes the nesting videos. Thanks.